Manscaped.com. Use promo code WrestlingFuture for 20% off your purchase. Manscaped.com and the Lawnmower 3.0.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to an epic episode of Wrestling with the Future. We're going back to the territory. In fact, we're going back to the Southwest Territory. I'm Angelo DeCipio. Welcome to the show tonight. My co-host, as usual, the Happy Haberdasher, Dan the Man Sebastiano, the smartest guy in the room. Daniel, how you doing tonight?
Great. Looking forward to this conversation. I mean, we always...
I'm going to tell you what. There are conversations, and then there are guys who can tell a story. We got two of the best in the business tonight.
Yes, sir.
And let me smarten you up a little bit. I know you're a young guy, and you tell everybody you're the smartest guy in the room, and we let you believe that for the most part. But there was once upon a time, Daniel, in wrestling lore, there was a territory called the Southwest Territory, run by a guy named Joe Blanchard. You might know his son, Tully Blanchard. But the guys who really made that territory cook, there were three of them. There was a guy named Eddie Mansfield, a cantankerous, cranky-looking baby face, if there ever was one. Never worked baby face a day in his life, but he was just like the boy next door. He was a good-looking cat. Still is a good-looking cat, in fact. Then you had this ugly old hombre of a cowboy who was a baby face, and well, you know, I heard that he couldn't tell the difference often, Dan, between a horse and a mule, and once tried to side saddle a jackass. But we'll talk about that later. I think Eddie's got a story about that. But his name is Cowboy Scott Casey, and they are with us tonight, and we're going to take a walk through the territory that they, by and large, built and defined. And there was one other character, Dan the Man, who put everything together. He was the linchpin to all of this, and his name was Wahoo McDaniel. And we're going to hear a lot about Wahoo tonight. So let me introduce, from the Sunshine State of Florida, I think he's still there. He may be in Texas. He may be on an island somewhere. He may be in Honolulu, for all I know. Eddie Mansfield, how you doing, my friend?
Angelo, I'm doing really, really good.
Brother, every time I talk to you, you're in a different part of the world. Where are we at tonight?
Well, I'm in the great state of Texas.
You in Texas tonight, all right. Now,
yeah.
We got a guy that should be in Texas, but he's, I think, in Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken. Cowboy, where you at tonight?
I am in Junction City, Arkansas, believe it or not.
That was right.
Now, if you were to look at the map, I was going to say, if you look at the map, Arkansas and Louisiana butt up against each other, and we're right on the Arkansas line. I could probably throw a rock and hit Louisiana right now. So that gives you
Scott, is that what you're saying? Scott, so what you're saying is if the United States needed an enema, they'd stick it there.
There you go.
Oh, Eddie, you're never one for lack of words. I love it.
We are getting started.
But
I told Dan the Man at the start of the show, I said we got two of the best in the business. Dan, we might get 5 words in the show tonight. We might get 5. By the way, Eddie, just for the record,
yes,
I already put it out there. I put up my show for tonight on Facebook, you know, telling everybody that Cowboy Scott Casey and the Continental Lover, Eddie Mansfield, are going to be on the show. And, you know, we're going to talk about, you know, Southwest and Wahoo. And Karen gave Wahoo McDaniel a big thumbs up. And she gave Cowboy Scott Casey a giant thumbs up. And when it came to Eddie Mansfield, there was a big old poop emoji there.
Is that what Karen it did to me?
Yeah, she gave you the thumbs down, Bo. Yeah.
Well, you know, Wahoo was a little tired when he married her anyway. You know, the chief was worn out when he married that tired ass. And
hey now.
So it's, you know, it's just, you know, I can't help that, you know, she must have got him when he was drunk. That's all I can say.
Oh, jeez. Well, let's talk about this this often overlooked territory. You know, in the history of U.S. wrestling, there are the quintessential territories. You have, of course, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico often go under the radar. California, San Francisco, Los Angeles.
Don't forget L.A.
Yeah,
LA
absolutely.
was a hot-ass territory.
Yes, sir. Oh, absolutely. You know, Portland, of course, the Chicago, Philadelphia, New York. All of these, you know, quintessential territories. But oftentimes, the Southwest territory largely slips under the radar by wrestling historians. And some of the greatest talent in the world went through there. Of course, both of you guys, Wahoo, our friend Manny Fernandez, even my buddy David Yohanan did a trip through. So I don't know, whoever wants to take this first, maybe Eddy, you can. Why is Southwest often overlooked by wrestling historians?
Well, because a lot of wrestling historians are legends in their own mind. And bottom line is this. Scott Casey and myself pioneered Southwest Championship Wrestling. We popped Southwest Championship Wrestling. We drew more money by accident than anybody, period, in Southwest Championship Wrestling in the history of that damn place.
Well, and I know you did, and that's why
I'm gonna tell you something. When we set the record at the Hemisphere Arena, they turned away 10,000 people.
I heard.
And I can tell you one thing: we held that record for 11 straight years until they tore down the Alamo Dome.
Yeah, I believe that. I know that to be true. So
let me tell you, when I first, I'm going to give you some history. You asked for some history. Be quiet and listen. So here's the history. Bottom line is this: when me and Scott showed up at the Hemisphere Arena, Tully Blanchard and some jackass was on top, and they're in a 22,000 arena, right? Seat arena. That's where the Spurs played. That's where we wrestled. They only drew 800 people. Well, when I left and Casey left, we were not only drawing 23,000 plus, but we're turning away people. And this was in every arena that Scott Casey and myself ever went in.
And I know that to be true. Cowboy, let me ask you a question. How did you make your entrance in the Southwest? Who brought you in?
Wahoo McDaniel and Tully Blanchard. I had gotten disgusted, and I left wrestling for about 6 months. And I get a call one day from Wahoo and Tully, and they asked me what I was doing, and I told them I was working for a security agency. And they said, how'd you like to come down here and make some real money? And I said, I don't know. And they said, Wahoo said, if you don't, motherfucker, I'm going to come down there and break both your arms. That was the way he always talked to me. Never called me Scott.
Never call you Scott. No.
I love him to death. God, I wish he was still with us. But anyway.
Yeah, no, I'll tell you what.
I went down there.
He liked you. He called you motherfucker.
Right. He was.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is, you know, and I'm not going to deny it. And I probably did a couple of others. I'm not sure. But anyway, we got down there and we started working. And to be honest, and not because I love Eddy, but I do love him, his mouth got us over bigger than anything that we ever did. I mean, I raised quarter horses down there. I had 60 acres, and I would raise quarter horses. And he would come along and just browbeat the living shit out of me. You know, and I just went along with it because I knew it was going to pay off somewhere down the line. But I mean, the more he aggravated me, the more the people hated him. And I loved it. I thought it was great. And God bless you, Eddy. You know, honest to God, you made this thing pop. I went along for the ride, but you really did. And
And then you know what, Cowboy, you brought a segue in here, really important too, because Eddy, you're a guy who you're entitled with the heel, but you're a good-looking guy. You look like the boy next door. Scott Casey, looked like yesterday's roadkill. I mean,
Now, let me tell you. Here's why it worked. I'm gonna tell you why it worked. And I had this long talk with Wahoo.
Right.
When I sat down, Wahoo asked me who I wanted to work a program with. I said Scott Casey. He said, why? I said, well, fuck, look at him. I said, he looks like the Marlboro Man. I said, he looks like every woman in Texas wants him. And I said, look, you let me get some heat on him and let me talk about him a little bit. And I said, it's going to be like two Brainerd Bulls hooking up, two young studs that every woman that is in that arena wants to screw. And then, and let me talk about their husband and wanting to buy a ticket to screw me. Let me get on the Casey and really get on him. And that's what happened. We fired them mothers up, and the rest is history, buddy. I mean, Scott Casey, I would have never, ever picked another guy to work a program with than him. I'm telling you, me and Scotty popped that.
I love you, Eddy.
I've never been popped.
Go ahead.
And it's the truth.
Well, I've got to tell this story, and it's just so funny. Wahoo it's about Wahoo, but it includes us too. Wahoo had this thing that if a little bit was good, then a whole bunch was great. Okay, you follow me there?
Yes, sir.
And
I know where you're going with it.
We would tape our television show every Tuesday night there in San Antonio, and it would just go on for hours, it seemed like. But anyway, we get through, we go to this place called the Diamond Gems. It was a bar, and they had this great big 9-foot-tall white polar bear there. And we would sit in there and drink, and Wahoo'd get drunk and say, I'm going to scalp the bear, because he's an Indian, right? So,
right.
After the TV show, we look around. Now, there's me, Wahoo, Tom Jones, and Mil Mascaras, all in Wahoo's big old black Cadillac. I look around, there's no Wahoo, there's no Cadillac. And I went, shit, what happened? Somebody said, oh, he left a while ago. He ran out the door. I said, ran out the door? We had someone, he and I were living in a condo, great place. Anyway, we drove up. Now, honest to God, this is the truth. God, if you strike me dead if I'm not telling you the truth on this. Drove up, the Cadillac's running, the door's open, the front door's open. I went, oh shit, something, maybe, I don't know what happened. So we walked in, there are 3 piles of white foam. And under these piles of white foam are shit. Folks, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I hear the shower going. Well, maybe he had a problem. So I go into the shower, and you get these glass showers, and this one, the water was probably up about 1.5 feet and rising, and there was about $300 in there, and I went, damn, but no Wahoo. So all of a sudden we hear this, oh, and then he goes, motherfucker, and I went, oh shit, that's my cue. So I walked into the bedroom. The 280-pound man, he's curled up like a ball underneath the bed. Now, how he got under there, I don't know. And he was dating a gal at the time, and I called her up, and she was a nurse. So she came running over there, and she said, what'd you do? Oh, I wanted to lose some weight. Now, remember I said his theory was if a little bit's good, then a whole bunch is great. This crazy son of a bitch took, what was it? 2 LASIK shots. LASIK is a water shot, maybe, and a 6-pack of Phenamint to eat. lose weight. Now, can you imagine anybody in their right mind? Well, that answers the question right there. But I mean, here he was. He's like that. He was so tightened up. I mean, it took us forever to get him back to normal, but that was the truth. And
we heard.
That's my story, and I'm.
So
anywho,
now, let me ask you a question. You go to the promoter and you say, "I want Scott Casey. I want to work a program with him, and let's do this and let's do that." So, what do you say? And how do you approach the Cowboy with this?
Well, I talked to Wahoo. My deal. Well, I cut a deal with Wahoo that comes from Atlanta down the Southwest.
Right.
And my deal was that I get a star maker every week. Then I get to do color commentary. Then I get to have an interview, and then I get to pick who I want to work a program with.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and Wahoo, we had a bet, and he said, "I bet you $1,000 you couldn't draw 2 dogs of goat shit with Scott Casey." I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "I'll take that bet all day long." And Buddy, I shook his hand, and I took that Indian's money too. And so I can tell you one thing: from a time that I tore that Cowboy hat up, and that was it. Game was on.
Oh yeah.
And I used to tell them Cowboys, I said, "Man, I've been in Texas. I hadn't seen a cowboy yet." I said, "Y'all John Travolta looking bunch of idiots." I said, and nanny goat riders and different stuff like that. And you gotta. That's what's missing today. They don't make it personal.
Yeah.
The people at home
Absolutely.
don't feel any personal acquaintance. It's like Scott. Scott would do interviews that made people love him, and then I'd turn around and do interviews that made them hate me, and I wanted them to hate me.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I was. That was my job.
That was your job, and that's what you got paid for. Go ahead, Dan, man.
Hey, you know what I loved about all of this? When they were going to pay us off, Eddy held them up for more money, and I loved it. I thought it was great because I figured we were probably getting screwed out of some of it. But anyway, I'll never forget that. I looked at you, and you grinned real big and said, "Ain't it grand?" And I went, "Oh, shit." But you got to do what you got to do to make your money, right? So,
absolutely.
And that's what we did.
You got to hold. We held them up. That's right.
Well, we had Larry Bisco on the other night.
If you're gonna draw the bank, you at least need to get paid from the bank.
Well, we had Larry Zabisco on the other night. He basically said the same thing. If we didn't work, we didn't eat. We had to work to eat.
You're right.
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, and a lot of times we worked and didn't eat.
Why am I even here?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out.
Oh. Well, let me ask you guys something. The Southwest had a lot of working relationships with some of the other, especially the AWA and some of the organizations around there. But you put on weekly shows, and if I remember correctly, it was USA Network. The one of the time slots that the WWF ended up taking over during their big territory killing expansion. I'm curious, with working every week in Southwest, did you guys travel back and forth as well into territories, or was it more of a permanent contract?
Well, there's no such thing as contracts.
Well, yeah,
but what we did was back then, me and Wahoo were traveling a lot to Atlanta because I come from Atlanta, and Ole Anderson killed the son of a bitch, so we had to go back in and try to help him to get it going again, and so Wahoo. Two of the things I'm really proud of is what I did with Scott, and that the Indian and myself was the first two guys on 6:05 on a Saturday afternoon, and at 10:30 on Sunday morning on national TV. We were the first two to ever do that, and a lot of people don't know that. And they certainly the wrestling historians. The wrestling historians certainly wouldn't let my name be known, but it's okay.
Well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. The Southwest show on USA Network, was that not the first nationally broadcast wrestling territory show? I know there was a lot of local, but wasn't that the first?
Yeah. Well, that and the Georgia Championship Wrestling it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You had Turner. That
goes lost on a lot of people, you guys. That goes lost on a lot of people. The fact that Southwest really was, for all intents and purposes, the first nationally syndicated wrestling show. Besides,
absolutely.
The Superstation WTBS Channel 17, the Ted Turner's network. But a lot of people forget about that. That a lot of great wrestling television came out of Southwest, Texas, Oklahoma. A lot of people forget about this stuff. Let's talk about a match today. And Eddie and Scott, and I've got to talk to you guys because you were both involved in this match. It was a mixed tag team match. Two big guys and two little guys versus each other. Cowboy Lang and Cowboy Scott Casey versus Eddie Mansfield and Dan, who was it?
Tim, right? Little Tim, or what they call him? I don't want to say Tiny Tim, but something Tim, right?
Who was
it? Tiny Tim.
Tiny Tim.
Was it Tiny Tim or Little Beaver? Little Beaver sounds better.
Yeah, I don't think it was Tiny Tim. I think it was Beaver. Yeah, I think it was Beaver. There you go. Well, I saw this.
Little Beaver sounds better,
I hear you, man. But I saw this.
You're a dirty old man.
Tiny Tom was his name.
This match, believe it or not, is on YouTube. And I watched it today. And I thought to myself, this is hilarious. And, as much as Eddie Mansfield is like, the dreaded heel, he's funny as fucking shit. Because you were hilarious working with this little person. And Scott Casey, Scott, you're so friggin' big. I mean, you just looked out of place.
It's funny because you love to work with the little guys because most of them are better workers than the big guys. And I know Cowboy Lang, I can't remember, didn't he bite you in the butt, Eddie, or not? I'm trying to remember if he did. I'm thinking he did, but
he did in fact.
A little ass up.
Well, I'll tell you what.
A little ass up and chunked him off the top rope too.
Yeah, and I will tell you that he did in fact take a bite out of Eddie Mansfield's ass. Yes, he did. It's all on video.
Well, a lot of women wanted to do that, So.
You're nuts.
You guys, we talked a lot about you guys drawing money, So let's talk about the money that you guys drew in an area that never knew what money looked like. And I hate to put the shitter on anybody, but let's just be honest about it. Up until Wahoo took the book, Southwest was in trouble. And Eddie, you know it because you were there. Tully,
let's just cut to the fucking chase now. The problem with Southwest Championship Wrestling was Tully Blanchard.
And that's where
the bottom line is that if he'd have left Wahoo alone and left Scotty alone, we would have kept drawing for another year and a half.
And that's exactly where I'm going.
No. and he had to be on top. So that's when I told Wahoo, Scotty, I told Wahoo, you need to put Gino and that Tully together, because Tully always needed to sleep with a belt. He always had to have a belt to sleep with.
Yeah.
And Scott will tell you that. And
I know that to be true.
And he tried to give me the Southwest belt. I looked at the chief. I said, "Hey, wow, I don't want no damn belt. I don't need a belt. Scott doesn't need a belt to draw money. We're selling it everywhere. We don't need a belt for what? Just to carry in the airport? We don't need that."
And it's funny, as you're saying that, people watching this right now are looking behind me at a photograph of the Southwest Championship belt, along with Wahoo McDaniel, Eddy Mansfield, and Scott Casey, been prominently displayed behind me. That was one of the early prestigious belts, by the way. Was it that he had to have it, or was it that Joe Blanchard wanted his kid to have it?
No, his kid had to have it. Joe Blanchard, let me tell you something about Joe Blanchard. And I'm going to say this in front of God and everybody. Joe Blanchard was a good man.
All right.
He had a good heart, and he paid Scott and myself good. It was his son that was the whole problem. That's how come we lost.
It's like I said in my book.
Go ahead,
Scott.
You know,
Go ahead, Scott.
I just said that in my book I talk about Tully. I mean, now Tully's an old man like me, and he's a preacher, but back then he was a prick. And I told him that one time. He thought he could get over with everybody because he was the promoter's son. No, that don't work. Not when you've been in the business as long as we had. And but you know, age humbles you, and you learn humility. I talked to him, hadn't talked to him in 30, 40 years, and I saw him at the gathering in Charlotte, North Carolina. And we talked, and I told him, I said, you know what, Tully, I said, you were a prick. He said, I know. I just enjoyed it. But I mean,
yeah, right along them lines, Scott, let me ask you, did Tully have this notion that he was better than he actually was? Because as a fan, before I got into the business, like everybody, I was a fan. And I always got the feeling that Tully felt like he was really better than everybody. That he was better than he actually was. You know?
Well, I tell you,
feeling from
lines, you're right. He probably did. The thing about Tully was, and a lot of people don't know it, he was a hell of a football player. He was a quarterback. And he even had Roger Staubach training him up in Dallas. He would go up there and work with Roger. And then he got into a car accident and tore his lat muscle on the right side, and he was right-handed. And that ended his football career. Well, maybe that made him want to go sour. I don't know. But, I mean, he just
I know that story about his
football. You know, I mean, but...
Yeah, that's by the way documented too. He had a promising football career that was cut short really quickly too. Go ahead, Dan the man.
Well, let me tell you the truth about this. Tully Blanchard, the only school that would give him a damn scholarship was West Texas. All right, if he was so highly touted, why would West Texas want the son of a bitch? He led West Texas in the most interceptions in history. And you know who the scholarship was granted to him by? Scott, did you know this? You know
no.
who gave him the scholarship to West Texas? Was the Funk Scholarship.
No, who?
Yeah, Terry Funk and
Dorian Terry
and Senior. That Funk Scholarship up at West Texas.
We did.
I don't know if they still have it now, but that's how he got the damn college scholarship. And what was the guy from the Eagles that was down there that was his name Richard? What was his name? He used to play tight end for the
Osborne.
Richard Osborne.
Osborne.
Oh, Richard. Yeah, and so we were in there. HT and Wahoo, myself, we were in Turtle Creek, you know, at the golf club. And Richard looked at me and he said, that Tully Blanchard's not worth a shit. He wasn't worth a shit as a quarterback, and he's not worth a shit as a wrestler. And he said, he threw the most interceptions in the history of West Texas. And he said, and that's hard to do because they don't play anybody. And I said, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, shit.
And so
boy.
I looked at Richard. And I said, oh, Lord. And he said, he's horrible. He's just pitiful. And so, but Richard, he went on, you know, to be he was the first guy to do a 7-Up commercial for the Eagles. He was a tight end, and he got stuck in his eye and he got double vision, and it cost him his career. He was a good guy though, Richard Osborne. He was really a good guy. Yeah. Crazy son of a gun, but he was a good one. I'll never forget what he told me. I like to die.
Well, let me
it's kind of hard.
Let me jump in here real quick. You were talking about Tully having the be with the belt and everything, and I know if I remember correctly, he was something like a 9 or 10 time champion.
Yeah, but I don't like I don't like that. Waste too much time talking about Tully.
Well, no, that's why I was transitioning to this question. You know, with some of the other, obviously with him being forced to dominate the scene, was there discussions among like a lower card title? I know you guys had a version of a television championship and some other things, and obviously, you know, you both had success with in the tag division. Was there talks of doing more undercard since the main event scene was kind of monopolized?
Well, let me tell you, he tried to put himself on top, and Scott Casey and myself were drawing all the houses. And finally, the shit didn't work any longer. Because I went to Wahoo and I said, hey, this is bullshit. This is not, we're drawing all the houses, Wahoo. How come all you wasn't drawing all this before Scott and me? You had the same damn people. You know, me and Scott, we were main eventers, buddy. We popped Southwest Championship Wrestling. We put it on the map, or it wouldn't have ever been on the map. Period.
Completely fair. And the fact that if you say do a YouTube search or an independent search on Southwest Championship Wrestling, probably 8 of the first 10 sites are some segment featuring you, one of you, two, or both of you, which I want to follow up something Angelo brought up, because I know we had talked about it last time with the tag match, the mixed tag match you had with the shorter gentleman. There's a lot of gimmicky stuff. Like at what point was there any point where you guys were constantly, I mean, weekly, monthly, involved in angles and gimmicks and interfering in each other's bits, and maybe some side matches where the other had to get involved? Was there ever a point where you felt like your long-term rivalry was getting stale, or did you keep coming up with new things and it just worked everything you did?
Well, they just kept coming up with things to do, you know. I mean, I can tell you like this. We had to work our ass off to get the people to come back. And we did it, and they came back, and it's like, this is my own personal opinion. Nowadays, I mean, like, we would start out, tell a story, and do the match, and have a pop, and boom, somebody win. Nowadays, they go out there and they start at 100 miles an hour and work their way up to 500 miles an hour. And I don't understand it, and evidently it pays off because the guys are getting exorbitant money, but and it's not jealousy. I mean, God bless them. I hope they make it. But it just didn't, you know, we were trained and taught a different way. It was a different time in wrestling, and we had to work our ass off to make it, but we did, and you know, you enjoyed it. But like you said, every week, you know, like Wahoo and Tully and me and Eddy would sit down and we go over angles. Well, you know, I mean, it's kind of like a pyramid. It's wide at the bottom and starts up to the top, you know, and we had to make it work. And we had to. We worked our ass off to do it. You know, we did a lot of blood, a lot of you name it, and we had to work hard for it.
Stabbing my happy.
Stabbing
my happy ass. You didn't mind. And you know, I want to tell somebody. Scott Casey, when we were doing the hair versus hair stuff, it was really cool. We probably had the first scissors match, you know, on a pole that I can remember of in wrestling. Could you remember of another scissors match?
It was, in fact, the first. That's a fact. That was the first one.
But one thing about it, people didn't understand that Scott Casey can cut hair. And Scott cut my hair.
I did men and women's.
Nice.
I had a special on Wednesdays for the ladies. I did.
Yeah, he's a hell of a
Go ahead.
Really is. So let me ask
I
you,
guarantee you
Scott,
one thing. But, hey, let me finish my story before I was really interrupted. And so,
that's okay.
Bottom line is this.
Look, I'm going to really interrupt you some more. Too,
I'd get that damn Scott. You know, I'd do the old sheet gimmick. I'd get that damn scissors off that pole, and then boom, you know, Scotty would hit me in the gut, and boom, the damn scissors fly up. He'd grab them, and then he'd grab my hair, but he could cut my hair so clean, boom, and he knew how to cut it, and he could throw it up in the air, and you would swear on your mother's eyes that he cut half my hair off. And that's the kind of stuff that we could do that a lot of people couldn't do.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what made people believe in us. And it's like Shawn Michaels said at the Cauliflower Rally Club. And he said it to Scott because I don't attend them. But he said to Scott that was the third best matches he's ever seen in his whole career. And professional wrestling was a hair versus hair with Scott and myself. And you know, that's quite a accomplishment. You know,
it sure is. As a matter of fact, that we actually reached out to the WWE to get a word from Shawn Michaels. We have not heard back. In fact, I told Scott about that. Even to the point where I called the center. But,
I mean, you know, I was surprised that he paid us that type of compliment. You know, I mean, Shawn had just been in the business for less than a year, maybe, when he saw that, and I was flabbergasted because here this guy has made millions of dollars, and
but you have to remember too, Scott, that it's like I said before he got into the business, he was just like all of us. He was a fan first, so he appreciated great wrestling. Speaking of great wrestling, Scott Casey, Southwest Championship Wrestling, there was an angle that you were involved in, one of the most talked about of the time, involving Cowboy Scott Casey and a gentleman named Bobby Jaggers. Walk me through that fiasco.
Well,
through Bobby Jaggers.
You know, a lot of different done over the years, and people say, oh, well, it's going to kill this, it's going to kill that. But you can't kill wrestling. People love to come and see it. But what you're referring to is I had 60 acres of land, and I had a lot of horses out there, and they would drop horse shit all the time, and we worked an angle where I took and filled a 20-gallon bucket full of horse shit, and Bobby was up on the podium with Steve Stack doing an interview talking about me, and I was once again the nanny goat rider, and that's Eddy's by anyway. We had this bucket of horse shit in the back, and some of the guys would take a leak in it and everything else because they knew it was going to go out, what was going to happen. We went and had before the people came in, we took the bucket of horse shit and put it under the podium.
Oh my God.
Bobby comes up there and he talks and he challenges me to a match, and I say, why don't you get in the ring now? And he said, no, and he's doing his thing. Anyway, I he slapped me in my left ear. He was right-handed, obviously. He slapped me in my left ear and blew my eardrum out. And when he did that, I had, you know what tinnitus or tennis is, you know, rings. I still have it. But anyway, turns around, and I take this bucket of horseshit. And folks, if you're listening, this is the gospel. I emptied that whole thing on top of his head. And I hope they paid him well for that. Because it was, no one has ever done it, don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, it was it was a mess. Steve Stack had to go change his clothes. I had to go change my tights and boots. But it popped like crazy, you know. And we.
And I'm going to tell you something, brother. It is immortalized on video for the entire world to see. And if you haven't seen it,
Jaggers,
go check it out.
Hey, Jaggers was a piece of shit. I'll never forget.
I heard that.
You know,
I heard that for sure.
When he, you know, if his lips was moving, he was lying. And so Jerry Briscoe, you'll love this, Scott. Jerry Briscoe calls me, and he says, you know, Bobby Jaggers died. I said, oh, I'll be damned. I said, you know, Jerry, I guarantee you that son of a bitch is up there lying to God right now. And that's the truth. That's,
yes.
That's exactly what I said to Jerry Briscoe. It's like, as a person come on, I guarantee you, he's lying to God right now. Guarantee you, because he had to lie to get. He had to lie to get past St. Peter. You know,
yeah, right.
Told him a good lie. Yeah, and so he got to God. So you know he's lying to him.
Well, let's talk about the people of that caliber. There was another guy in Southwest that sometimes gets overlooked because he made the transition to world class and is largely known for his tenure in world class. But you, both of you worked with a gentleman named Gino Hernandez. Talk to me about your memories of Gino.
Well, I remember Gino had the same kind of attitude that Tully had, and they thought they were better than sliced bread. And, you know, and I'd been in the business 12, 15 years at the time, and Gino started his bullshit with me. God rest his soul, I have nothing against the man, but I told him, I said, I don't want to hear your bullshit. You can rattle off all you want to these young guys. I said, but I've heard it all, and I know it all, and I know when you're bullshitting and when you're telling the truth. And he laughed. He started laughing. And after that, I got his ultimate respect because I stood up to him. But Gino got him like Tully, and they thought they were better than everybody else. And, you know, in a way, it helped them in the wrestling world because it helped them make money. But, you know, it's just, you know, there's guys that way. You know, they think that nobody can touch them. Nobody's as good as they are. And that's just the way it was. But, you know, God rest his soul, he was a good soul. And when I had him away from the ring and talking to him, he was a completely different person. Into that story.
Well, then let me ask you something else. We touched on some of the talent. Obviously, the focus tonight's been you guys working with each other and your completely flattering, non-biased opinions of your former champions and stuff like that. But I'm curious, since you mentioned Gino and some of the other talent that came through the Southwest, do you guys have any good stories about other people you've worked with besides each other?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can remember there was a lot of guys. I mean, I worked on my 33rd birthday.
Well, one at a time.
Hold on, Eddie. Let me tell you this story. I still have the scar
shit.
where Armand Hussein locked up with me, and he had this long fingernail, and he just sliced it. And I don't know whether you've ever seen a cheekbone. It looks just like an eggshell on the outside. And I was so mad. It was my 33rd birthday. We were going to go out and celebrate and have a good time. And Yeah, it
And
took
he
16 stitches to.
Yeah. Man.
But I was still pretty.
Well, you still
Go
go
ahead,
Well,
Eddie.
I tell you,
Absolutely.
yeah.
How about you, Eddie?
But I tell you, I mean, well, you know, with Scott and like Wahoo, it was Terry Funk and myself in a tag match. We had this a couple of times in Corpus Christi. I mean, we had riots. I mean, people don't even know what riots are anymore. We had riots back then, and shit, we'd have to fight our way back to the damn dressing room, and it was unbelievable. And I'll never forget that night. I said,
I think I grabbed you in a headlock and ran you back to the dressing room one time, Eddie, because of the riots. I'm not sure. It comes to mind.
Yeah, you had to get my ass out of there.
I said, shit, that's my payday they're trying to kill out there.
yeah, that's it. And I told Terry, don't you turn around and yell at them. Let's keep moving. You know, they're throwing belt buckles and everything else at her. He turned around. He said, "You stinking, rotten Mexican!" About that time, boom! He got stuck right in the throat with a knife. And he looked at me and he said, "That son of a bitch stabbed me." I said, "Well, I told you not to stop." And he says, "Let's go." I said, "Now you want to go?" Okay, so we got back. But that's Terry. And I'll never forget this, Scott, and I don't know if I ever told you this. The night we drew that big house, and we set the record in San Antonio, Funk Jr. and Terry came over to me. I was lacing my boot up. And they looked at me and he said, "Hey, I just want to tell you, you and Scott Casey drew this house. None of us in here drew this house. You and Scott Casey drew this house. We were all here before. We could.
You know what got me? Right underneath us, they had a 6-man tag match. I mean, 3 on each side. Everybody had to get in there to get the money, but I'm glad you held them up.
Exactly. So you guys, so Joe Blanchard starts this group somewhere around 77, 78, right? Around 1978. And so
what, Southwest Wrestling?
Yeah, Southwest.
I was earlier than that. It was probably around 72, 73.
Was it
I
really?
think, because I was down there for 8 or 9 years.
Oh, okay. Well, is that about right, Eddie? About 72, 70? Because I'm thinking 77, 78.
Yeah, but I wasn't in. I didn't come around there till late. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
And he by that time he got his stuff together, got TV and really got, you know, it got Wahoo in there, got Scotty in there, got, you know, he had Pusky in there and started getting some talent in there.
And that's exactly where I'm going with it. Yep. Eddie, Eddie, stay with me on this too, because that's a perfect segue. And I'm glad, Scott, you said that it was earlier than that, because as far back as I go with Southwest is 77, 78 when I discovered it. But I know that it was a rapid ride to stardom with Southwest, because the company as a company and as an entity, it pretty well only lasted till about 1985 or 86. Am I right? And then
that's when the cocaine run out.
Yeah, and then
the cocaine run out.
I was going to ask you, because I heard no, and he's actually, believe it or not, he's got some validity to that. Because I heard what the problem was that a lot of drugs were going through that area. A lot.
Well, Fred Behrens was probably one of the biggest coke dealers in, you know, the United States. Well, let's put it the Southwest United States.
Okay.
And he had you know, have you ever known a guy that could sell cars, you know, not own the thing, and have a ranch out there in Bernie, Texas? You remember that ranch, Scott? And I took
my horse out there and rode him to the front door of his house.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that's right. You sure did.
Well, the reason I'm going there, you guys, is because, like I said, let's say if you say 1972, I'm saying 77, so give or take a couple of years. Point is somewhere in the mid 70s to 85, 86, right? Somewhere around here. So the company has a rapid.
You're right.
Yeah, but it was later. It was later. It was more like Southwest really grew in 1980. That's when Scott
right.
Casey and myself got there. That's when we started popping that thing. All them rest of them years were a waste of time. Huh?
Eddie, you got there in 82, right?
No, I got there in 1980.
Oh,
and I
in
stayed
80?
there till 80, 81, 82.
Oh.
And I got out of there at the end of 82. Yeah.
And the Cowboy, did you go? Did you follow?
They had to run. They ran me out because Tully was so jealous of me, and Scott that he didn't want me around because I could have turned babyface, and me and Scott could have teamed up against Gino and Mr. Prick, and had another run, and then I could have turned on Scott, and me and him would have had another run, another year, would have kept it going. And,
is it fair to say you left a lot of money on the table? Is it fair to say you left a lot of money on the table?
Yeah, they left a lot on there, believe me.
Yeah. So now, Cowboy, so you and Eddie.
Yes, sir.
You work in this program till the end of this thing, or till the company goes bust, or did you leave before the company folded?
Hey, me and Scott Casey didn't bust no fucking company, number one. Number two, we left. When I left, we were selling out everywhere. The only reason I left was because the prick screwed me on my payoff.
Right. I never implied.
I left.
I want to clarify something because it's important. I never implied that you and Scott busted the territory. What I said was that the company went bust. The company itself went broke in 1988. That's a fact. That's a matter of public record. And I know that.
I believe Fred Barron was the reason.
Jaggers.
Say again, Scott.
It's just like.
Say again, Scott.
Hello.
Yeah. Say that again. What was the reason?
I said I believe it was Fred Barron. I think he was the reason. Because either Joe got tired of doing it or got sick or something. I don't know because by that time I had gone away from it. I think it was like 87 or something like that. When Barron came in there, I didn't stay. And I went up to Dallas for about 6 months, and then I got my chance to go to the WWF. So
okay, because here's what happens then. There's something interesting happens then. Around 85, 86, toward the end of Southwest, World Class and some of the Texas territories start absorbing some of the talent from Southwest. And guys who never got over in Southwest were now all of a sudden becoming stars. Now, my question to both of you seasoned veterans, is that and Dan's laughing at me, is that a testimony to the Texas territories, or is that a black eye on Southwest for not utilizing some of
let me
talent?
tell you something. If the son of a bitch couldn't get over on Southwest Championship Wrestling, he ain't going to get over anywhere else. And the only reason he got over anywhere is because they didn't have any other talent. I can tell you that.
That's my point, Eddie. Thank you for going. That's why I said stay with me on this. Now,
because one thing about it, Scott Casey will tell you exactly what I'm saying. If you didn't get up and go, and you had to bring it every night. Yeah. I mean, this is Texas. This is not some kind of little fluffy ass damn little place you go hang out. Man,
Yeah.
we used to move them tables. We used to have brawls all over the damn buildings and everything, man. And you know, you had to be a pretty tough guy to handle all this shit, you know. And we didn't play. Texas wrestling was tough.
Oh, straight
And-
shit.
and-
Absolutely. So let me ask you
And,
then,
you know,
Scott.
No, let me ask you something, Angelo. What
Yes,
you
sir.
forgot to bring up is this. Okay, Scott Casey got over bigger, better, drew more money than Wahoo McDaniel. Ivan
Well, we're
Putney,
actually going to talk about that. Don't forget.
Chavo,
2 hours.
Chavo Guerrero, all these other guys that are supposed to be so great, but no, the Cowboy outdrew them all by accident.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk a lot about that, in fact. Don't forget, it is a 2-hour show.
Well, I'll tell you right now, and thank you for saying that, Eddie. That's very flattering. You know, of course, it always takes 2 of you in the ring to dance. But anyway, I have to give a lot of credit.
I have to interrupt you, Scott, because I want to say something. You're a humble guy, but I need to say something for the record, okay? So hear me out and just
Okay.
It's true. You're absolutely right. It takes 2 people to dance in the ring. But one of those guys is always going to shine. One is always going to shine. And that's the guy that people pay money to see. And you're that guy. So I appreciate your humility, but keep it real around here. We are up on the hour.
You know, it's like I was going to say.
So, Angelo.
Yes, sir.
What would the people...
I'm coming up. Eddie, you'll appreciate this being in television. I'm coming up on a hard break. So I got to do my commercial here.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dan.
Go ahead. Hit it.
Okay. Yeah. It's the longest I'm going to get to talk tonight. You know, we obviously take good care of each other, and we've talked a lot tonight, but we do want to do our shout out. Our sponsor for today's episode is Manscaped.com. Manscaped.com is the leading producer and supplier of man trimming products. Their current package includes the Lawnmower 3.0, which is the #1 rated trimming man trimmer on the market. It's a bundle deal, includes a deodorizer, refreshing spray, a deodorant. They have a package of new wipes. It all comes in a leather carrying case. You can use promo code WrestlingFuture for 20% off at Manscaped.com. Promo code WrestlingFuture, 20% off your purchase. They also have the Weed Whacker, which is a nose and ear trimmer, among other products. Manscaped.com and promo code WrestlingFuture. Your balls will thank you.
Your balls will thank you.
Hell, you need to send that to Bret Hart.
I got that one. I got that one, Eddie. Thank you.
You got that one, didn't you, Scotty?
Yes, sir. I got that one, brother. Okay, so now.
Angelo.
Yes, sir. Yes, Scott.
I was trying to say before the mouth on the other end has gotten way again. Hold on, Eddie. I love you. But anyway, the thing I think that helped me get over more than anything else in the world, and it was such a simple thing. I was in Los Angeles, and I was out there talking, and I see Lou Thez, and he's peeping through the curtains. This is the first match. And I walked up to him, and for all you people that don't know who Lou Thez was, he was like 7 or 8 time world champion. I mean, he literally went around the world that many times. Tremendous worker. And I asked him, I said,
Legit
Lou,
world champion. Yeah.
what are you doing? I said, you've been world champion. He said, Scott, and I'll never forget this. He said, you can always learn, you can always steal, you can always put it into your repertoire, different moves, and it'll help you get over. And that's what I credit a lot to. God rest your soul, Lou. I loved you to death. And, it was true. And after that, I don't care where I was at, whether it be Madison Square Garden or Corpus Christi, Texas, I would be looking at the matches through the curtains to learn things. Because, your mind goes one way and your body goes another sometimes with this stuff. And I learned a lot. You know, I mean, there was a lot of tremendous wrestlers that I can't give credit to all of them at one time, but they just I stole things, I used them in the ring. I used moves, I used expressions, I used things on interviews. And for all you young guys out there, hopefuls that want to wrestle, let me tell you, you can have the best looking body in the world, like, say, the Ultimate Warrior or somebody like that. You can have the best moves in the ring and wrestle, and their timing can be great. But if you cannot, and I cannot stress this enough, if you cannot talk on that microphone, you might as well hang your tights up and go home and get a ticket for the next show. Because that's what made
in there
in the
lies
story.
One of the greatest talkers in the business, bar none, and we got him on the show tonight. And arguably, he is a guy who can work. And there's a big difference between wrestling and working. Eddy Mansfield is a worker, but bar none, Eddy Mansfield is the golden voice of the promo, straight up, straight shoot. This man can cut a promo on a dime, and I've seen him do it. He did it with me twice on the show tonight.
Hey, let me tell you something about Eddy Mansfield. We'd be out there wrestling in the ring, and all of a sudden he'd save my bacon by telling me, okay, let's do this, let's do that. All right, and stop right here, and we'll get it done. And I admired him for that. I never got pissed off at him or nothing because I knew what he was doing. The man was a natural at what he did.
And
love you to death for it, Eddy.
Scotty, let's talk about that.
Well,
Ed,
I appreciate that.
Question for you, Ed. And you and I have had some conversation before, but let's talk about something we've never discussed. You know, I know that let me back up for a second. The other night, Larry Zbyszko was with us, and Larry said something really interesting. He said back in the territory days, there weren't a lot of wrestlers because the business was so closed off from strangers. They didn't trust new people getting in. They didn't want new guys to come in because it cut into their money and it cut into their time. But a lot of guys that had talent and no training got in because of their promo skills. Larry was one of those guys like you, Eddy, who all he had to do was open his mouth and people hated him. Now, talk to me about this ability. You know, I know you've had some training, but the bottom line is what you have comes either instinctively or it's just bred in you. It's got to be something that's just part of your DNA. Talk to me about the art and skill of being a pro wrestling promo guy. And you're one of the best.
It's not only about being a wrestling promo guy. It's about, I'll never forget this. And Scotty mentioned L.A. I was on top for a while in L.A. And I was sitting, I'll never forget this, on seat 32 in the Olympic Auditorium next to Leo Garibaldi. And I said, Leo, I'm not one of the biggest guys in the world. I said, how can I, be a star in this business and stay on top? He said, well, Ed, he said, I can give you the finish. And this is where so many guys have missed the whole point about this business. I can give you the finish, but what you do in between the time they ring that bell and that finish will get you over or it will not get you over. It doesn't really matter who wins the match. It's how you allow them to win that match. And then then you get your heat after that match, and then you grab that microphone and you light somebody's ass up. It's like if I was talking about Scott, I would say, I was riding down the road the other day, right on the right. I went right by his ranch. And look at Scott Casey. What was he doing? He was out on a quarter horse roping a bunch of damn nanny goats. And can you imagine a cowboy roping nanny goats, and he calls himself a cowboy? I mean, for God's sake, he's a Repsol Ranger. He's not a cowboy. I mean, you know, and stuff like that. You got to get personal, and see, so many guys, they always were worried about Chavo Guerrero's were the worst. He always had to get his hand raised. It's not about how many times you get your hand raised. It's how a wrestling match is a beginning, a middle, and end. And you got to get to the dance to have the dance. And so you got to work it, and you work those people into a frenzy. And when that Scott Casey used to explode on me, you could hear that freaking building shake. I mean, you could actually hear the building shake.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, it was just unbelievable. And that's the way you work it. And Scotty is like I told you on shows before I was on with you. Scott is one of the most underrated baby faces in the history of professional wrestling.
Absolutely. That's my buddy.
And I've told you that.
Well, thank you very much, Eddie.
Is it true?
Well, like I said, it takes two of us to dance. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I can tell you one thing. We damn sure danced good. We danced all the way, man. We sold out every single stinking from Waco to, you know, the Von Erichs couldn't sell out Waco, but Scott Casey and Eddie Mansfield did.
Scott, when you and Eddie left Southwest, did you guys see the writing on the wall? Did you know that your time was up there? And how important?
Well, I certainly did.
I think so.
I certainly did, Angelo. I certainly did when I saw my fucking paycheck.
Well, I was going to talk to you about that. Because you know, is there such a thing as like overstaying your welcome, especially when you know you're not getting your money's worth?
Well, how can you overstay?
I think it is
when you're drawing. When me
You're
and
right.
Scotty are drawing bigger houses than anybody, how can we overstay our welcome?
Well,
No, it was jealousy.
My point was,
it was pure jealousy.
Well, I know some of the problems there were financially related. I know this because guys who weren't worth it were getting more than they should have. You had, you know, for lack of
Angelo, let me explain this to you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Scott and myself would go in and sell out, whether it's Corpus Christi or San Angelo or Laredo, Texas, wherever it was.
Right.
Do you realize that Tully Blanchard wasn't even on the card and he got the same main event money that we did? Do you think that's fair?
And that's exactly what I just said. That's exactly what I just said. That's the point I'm trying to make. There were a lot of guys in that territory who sucked it dry financially. So for you, Eddie, when did you realize was that the point? Was you knowing that you weren't getting your money, it was time for you to go? How about you, Scott? Was it the same thing?
Well, do you want me to answer or do you want Scott to answer?
Well, I want Scott to answer that last part.
Go ahead, Eddie.
No, Scott, I was asking you.
I learned from when it was time for me to go, from when they let Wahoo go. Scott and myself was Wahoo's guys, and then they brought in Buck Robley, and Buck had, you know, and I'm a friend of Buck's. You know, the Buck was a good booker, and he would want me to ride with him, and I'd always rib him. Scott, I'd say, yeah, you must think I'm a damn idiot, Buck. You just trying to get a rub off me. That's all you doing. You just try, you know. But one thing about it, Buck made sure I got my money before I left.
Yeah.
And that's one thing about Buck Robley. He always stood up for the guys. And he always said to me, about Scott. He says, "You guys made this territory." And he said, "I hate to see you leave." I said, "Well, what else would you like me to do?" I said, "They're trying to run me out the damn door."
Yeah.
It's a shame.
Cowboy, how about you?
That old saying, money talks and bullshit walks. And that's what happened
That's
finally.
true,
You know, you can see the writing on the wall, you know, and if they want to go a different direction, if they've got different bookers in there, let them try to do it. Let them see if they can make the moves and make the money that we drew for them. I don't think they could. You know, it's just sad but true.
Did.
You know, it can be a cutthroat business, and we all know that. And it's just like when after I left Southwest Wrestling, I went up to New York. The very first match I had, I put somebody over, and I said, "Whoop, this ain't going to last long." I stayed there for almost 3 years, but they never used me, so I knew the writing was on the wall. It's just like down in Texas, the writing was on the wall. It was time to go, and I did.
Well, let me ask you. You were talking about, obviously it's come up a lot tonight about the draw and bringing in the tickets and the venues and all, or selling out the venues. That's something I wanted to focus on. Is Southwest was famous for some of their venues. I mean, obviously, we talked where you guys play in San Antonio. Do you have any? Can you kind of just touch on some of the big venues you guys played? Because the history of some of the buildings are so tied to wrestling before they were tied to, say, basketball or some of what they're known for now.
You want to go first?
If you're talking to me, I'm not really following you. What you mean by the venues? I mean, do you want to know what we did in the ring, or the money we made, or
no, the buildings. What Dan is asking is, talk about some of the famous wrestling buildings in Southwest and Texas, in that area.
Oh, okay. Well, obviously you had San Antonio. We didn't do Dallas because Fritz had that.
Right.
Corpus Christi. There weren't that many big places. There was like I'm trying to remember.
Waco.
Trying to remember some of the other. Waco, yeah, Waco.
Waco
was a hard place to sell out, but Eddy and I did. We sold it out, but it was
the Heritage Arena.
Brownsville, Laredo. Jesus, I mean, didn't we sell out Abilene too, Scott? Didn't they put us on that Abilene tour?
Yeah, we did. And what's his name? Slatton, the lawman. That was his promotion down there, and we sold it out. He was grinning so hard. He said, "I never thought I'd see this," but we did. We got it done.
We did. Absolutely.
Did either of you guys?
It's just a lot of hard work.
Well, have either of you guys worked one of the most famous buildings in the area, the Dallas Sportatorium? I know Dallas belonged to Fritz, but, a lot of people went in and out of the Sportatorium.
Yeah, we both worked that, but, that was a real shithole.
Well, Dan, talk to Eddy about the shithole called the Sportatorium.
Well, yeah, it's funny. You're not the first person who's mentioned that. I'm curious if you have a specific story.
Shithole.
Yeah, I'm curious if you have a specific story that soured you on it, or was it just constant crap that you had to deal with being there?
What? I'm not soured on any building. It wasn't. It's just that's until Scott and myself started going into big arenas. And then the New York guys were going into big arenas. Southwest Championship Wrestling was one of the first promotions to go in big buildings, and that's what people don't understand. We were one of the first to go into big buildings, and we wasn't just wrestling in little shitholes like the rest of the promotions were. because they wanted to steal all the money.
Well,
but you had Reunion Hall, you had Reunion, you know, in Dallas, and we had the Hemisphere in San Antonio, and so I mean we could go neck and neck with anybody. Well, and let me tell you something. I'll put our crew up against anybody, anytime, anywhere. They can bring it. And Southwest Championship Wrestling was, hey, when Scotty and me were on top, there wasn't any better. We did the job.
You talk arenas. Let me ask you something. Southwest filmed at a place in San Antonio called The Junction. We've heard a lot of stories about that.
That's legendary.
I was just about to say, I'm only 37, so most of the history of that building predates me. I was wondering if you have any good stories from The Junction.
Well, they damn sure had some good tacos next door. I can tell you that.
Yes, we did.
I want you to know, my wife's in the background. She was born in San Antonio. She just fist bumped your taco comment. She remembers that area.
Have everybody know, and Scott Casey said it for the record, so I'm just going to reiterate this. Scott Casey said the best taco he ever had was in New Jersey. And he said it on this show for the record. Am I right, Scott?
No, he was.
Absolutely. I'll back you 100% on that.
Where?
Uh-oh.
Well, you got to understand the Cowboy has a tendency to get drunk every now and then, and so
a little bit.
And so if he said the taco was good in New Jersey. Oh my goodness gracious!
It must have been when you said he was drinking anything.
That was probably Chihuahua meat, you know.
Oh shit!
No, he's talking about the Jersey tacos. That's funny. Well, let me ask
you. Had fajita.
Hey, guys.
Go ahead.
San Antonio is known for the puffy taco. There's a difference. Puffy. You get it? Puffy taco? Oh, you never had a puffy taco
they're called meat. I don't know if Meat Tierras is still there or not, but it has the damnedest food I ever ate.
Meat Tierras. Oh, I love Meat Tierras right across from the Alamo. Meat Tierras was the best food. Oh, my goodness. And I think they're still there, Scott. Man, was that good. Meat Tierras was the best. San Antonio was a great town. It really was.
Let me ask you, as we wrap up then to finish on a fun note, you guys talked a lot about traveling. The final question for both of you then, for the years and experience you spent on the road, where's the best food you've ever had traveling on the road?
Best food?
Yeah, just period.
Probably down there in Texas. If you like Mexican food, and I loved it. I mean, hell, I grew up on it. But that Meat Tierras is one of them.
It's got to
It's called Paisanos.
And it's just.
And also there was a place called Paisanos. It was a Italian restaurant down there. That's unbelievable. I don't know whether it's still there or not, but hell, I hadn't been back in years.
Yeah, but boy, they had some food down in San Antonio. If you can't get good food in San Antonio, it's your own fault. I mean, 'cause they got such it's a culture. It's a culture down there, with food. It's really, really cool stuff,
Yeah.
And anytime your girlfriend, anytime your girlfriend's mad at you, Angelo, just take her down to San Antonio and she'll get happy.
I'll have to ask my wife's permission first. I got to ask my wife's permission to take my girlfriend there. Oh, shit.
Well, that's where...
Be on your watch shit list for showing you that.
Down in San Antonio.
Be an ex-wife. I traveled San Antonio without her.
You guys are incorrigible. I love you. Well, I'll tell you what, Eddy, Scotty, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to say goodnight to both of you. Eddy, where can people reach you?
you be sure, everybody that's listening, you need to buy Cowboy Scott Casey's book. Because let me tell you something. Scott Casey is one of the best guys in the whole wide world. And I tell you what, me and that cowboy made more money by accident than most people did by trying. And you need to support his book.
Lying either.
Right.
And
well, Eddie, I love you for that. And Angela, once you cut off, I'll hold on because I wanted to ask.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Angela, when you get through with this, hold on so I can ask you something, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
You guys,
go ahead.
Thank you for having us. Thank you so much for having us, Angelo. And Dan, you just talk too damn much.
Too much. I got 10 words in with you two.
I'm telling you what. I told Dan you might get 5 words in the night.
Right? Apparently 10 words is too many.
You need to understand something, Dan. When you got 2 guys that can talk on the same show, you're lucky if you get 2 words in.
I had to have him do my commercial at least.
Right?
Hey,
Eddie, thank you, brother. I'll touch base with you in a day or 2.
Hey, you guys take care, and thanks so much for having me on and Scotty on, and be sure to plug his book and all the Southwest Championship Wrestling fans. Please buy his book because it's a hell of a book, and he's a hell of a guy. Thank you guys so much. Have a good night.
Thanks, Eddie. Take care.
Good night.
Eddie Mansfield, everybody. All right, Scotty, you're still with me, right?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, there we go. Okay, so
I need to ask you something.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a female wrestler by the name of Candy Divine called me, and she said, "How do I get podcast internet on my phone?"
Oh, Wrestling with the Future.
I have no idea what that means.
Sure.
Excuse me, what?
I will take care of Candy Divine. Not a problem. I will send all the links to you.
Okay, I appreciate it.
It's
been a lot of fun, and I'll do it for you anytime. You get in a bind, give me a holler. I'll be glad to help you.
All
right?
I know, and I want everybody to know that I am promoting your book right behind me. It's called One Last Ride, The Tales of Cowboy Scott Casey, co-authored by Nick Massey. He's a buddy. He's been on the show with Scott. Get the book. It is available everywhere books are available on Amazon, Dalton Bookseller, Barnes & Noble. You can get it everywhere. So get Scott Casey. What's it, like $20, Scotty?
Just depends. If you're going through the mail, it's $37.50. If you're not, it's $30.
$30. Okay, I was not sure if it was $20.
Okay.
You got it. Absolutely, brother. Well, listen, my friend. Thank you for
All
joining
right.
me. I'll probably give you a holler tomorrow because I want to talk to you about some stuff anyway. All righty?
Okay, and give me that stuff so I can tell Candy how to watch our show or listen to our show.
Oh,
okay?
She can watch it and listen to it. Absolutely. Good stuff. Thank you, Scott.
Okay.
Take care.
All right.
Have a good night. Scott Casey, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Daniel?
Yes, sir.
I think the word count for you and I combined might be 20.
20, 25 tops.
Yeah, tops. First of all, when you got Eddie Mansfield on,
right?
Just shut up and sit back and listen.
Well, I love the fact that we were keeping count of the number of cutoffs.
How sad is that shit?
Hey, you know what? You were trying. You kept trying to throw it to me, but you got 2 talkers that just let them go.
Yeah, but he says, before I was rudely interrupted, let me tell you something, brother. How did Wahoo McDaniel would say it? Listen, motherfucker.
Right.
I'll interrupt you some more.
That's funny.
Because I'm good like that. Just ask Dan the Man. Daniel, we got through another one. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, just so everybody knows, you're not going to be with me Tuesday. You've got another commitment.
Yes, sir.
Mike Messier will be with me Tuesday. We are bringing back, on Tuesday, really important guest, and I want to tell everybody. On Tuesday, Seth Turner, one of the founding members and president of the International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. He and Tony Villano saw this vision to fruition. Try to say that one there. And Seth is the young buck that took control of this thing, and he's a guy that's got a lot of wrestling knowledge and history to him.
Right.
Fairly young man, but he's steeped in wrestling history. He really loves his wrestling. And
correct me if I'm wrong. That he was the one you posted the link to where they had just recently acquired Bruno's original belt, right?
Exactly right. Yes, they did acquire it for their museum. It was the actual belt that Bruno won. They got it from the San Martino family. They actually donated it to the museum.
Nice.
Because that's what Bruno would have wanted. And if Bruno, it's funny because Bruno often gave, I don't know if you know this, Dan, but Bruno often gave that replica belt to people he would meet.
Oh, nice.
You can go. He actually gave one to Bruno Mars, who he's named after. Yeah, Bruno Mars is named after Bruno Sammartino. Bruno Mars' dad was a wrestling fan.
Of course.
And he was a Bruno fan. So he named Bruno Mars Bruno after Bruno Sammartino.
That's great.
Bruno often give that belt. But yeah, Seth acquired that from the family. He's also got some breaking news he wants to share with us, and we may be breaking some news of our own on that day with regards to this podcast, and we're just going to keep mums on that for a little bit. But let me tell you who's coming up. Again, Seth Turner next week on the 24th. We have with us on December the 1st, the return of Nick Christopher. He is that amazing author of crime novels on the Greek and Italian mob and the Irish mob, and he will be with us to continue his conversation. What a fascinating writer this man is. I love talking to mob authors. He and George Anastasia. Well, I would love to get both of them guys.
Right, that'd be wonderful.
To get John A-Light on the show. Oh man, I would love to get him on here. Even if he called in. If you're call me. Give me a call. My number's on the link. Anyway, so Dan, what you got going on in the world of Sebastiano?
Well, I mean, like you said, I'll be out next week. We're not recording Thanksgiving Day. We'll be back on the 1st. We have a lot of stuff about some recurring guests and some new faces that are coming back. And then we could finish up the month, and then, finish up the year, and then bright and early January, we'll be back with a new coat of paint and ready to go.
Oh boy, we got a brand new coat of paint. Yeah. Well, December will be an abbreviated month, of course, because of Christmas and the holidays. We'll probably we may do a total of 4 shows for December, maybe. We of course, we will stop recording. The last show before Christmas will be that Tuesday. And of course, the first show for the new year will be the first Tuesday of 2021. And so it's really easy to remember.
Right. So
we don't do any show on Christmas. We never do a show on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. That's reserved for family and friends and getting right with whoever your God is. But with me, I'll be spending time with family and getting fat and eating whatever my wife decides to cook. And so, for Dan the Man, for myself, Angelo DeCipio, thank you for joining us on Wrestling with the Future. Happy wrestling, everybody, and we'll see you next time.